Hey there, Black Sheep. Welcome back to the channel, and this week's episode of This Bites, the series in which we analyze Watchtower propaganda and literature and highlight how it implements the bite model. If you are unfamiliar with the bite model, it's the go-to method used to identify extreme control groups and cults, and the methods that they use to coerce, recruit, and maintain control of their members. This week, at a Kingdom Hall near you, Jehovah's Witnesses will be discussing Study Article 25 of the June 2024 Watchtower Study Edition. The article is entitled, "Remember that Jehovah is the Living God." The first paragraph starts off with classic Watchtower fear-mongering and a side dish of Christian persecution complex. It reminds Jehovah's Witnesses that they're living in the last days. I hate to say this so early in the video, but the Jehovah's Witnesses religion is in fact a doomsday cult. A doomsday cult is a religious movement whose members believe that an apocalyptic event will soon occur. The paragraph says that these critical times are hard to deal with for everyone, but especially Jehovah's Witnesses. It's giving main character complex, emotional control, instill fear, such as fear of the outside world, enemies, losing one's salvation. Paragraph 2 says that Jehovah is a real person who sustains us during our trials. It's not your endurance, your problem-solving skills, or the generosity of your support system who love you. Nope, no one is to be credited besides Jehovah. You wouldn't have been able to get through your trials on your own. Behavior control, instill dependency and obedience. Paragraph 3 says that David was expressing confidence in Jehovah as a living God who constantly acts on behalf of his people. Constantly? Which is it? Is he constantly acting on behalf of his people?
I thought that fire was loud. I thought that you could hear a wildfire, and it was just dead quiet. By the time we went down the driveway and around the corner, we stopped and looked back, and the back of my parents' house was on fire.
When the pandemic hit, we lost our work. We couldn't go to work, and we also couldn't leave our apartment. The situation was very hard.
My husband, Ivan, was charged with organizing extremist activity. He was put into pretrial detention for 4 months. I found out that I had a tumor in my chest and I would have to have a very serious operation.
I lost my mom to the coronavirus. Living 3,000 miles apart, there would be a long time before I would be able to go home at all, and I wasn't able to be there when it happened.
Earlier this year, my son Nathan died in a tragic accident. He was 2 years old. At that time, I asked Jehovah the question, why is this happening to me?
Sometimes, brothers, we might be waiting for some big, bold, dramatic expression of Jehovah's hand. But in reality, what do we need to do? We need to turn up our spiritual hearing aids so that we can hear the calm, low voice of Jehovah. You see, Jehovah's answer to our prayers might come in a way that we don't expect. Maybe it's through the kind gesture or act of one of our brothers or sisters. Maybe it's through a text message, an email, a phone call, or some other way that our brother or sister acts to show their kindness.
This article will continue to go back and forth on whether Jehovah is an interventionist God or not. This is thought control. Teaching thought-stopping techniques which shut down reality testing by stopping negative thoughts and allowing only positive thoughts, including denial, rationalization, justification, wishful thinking. Subheading 1. The living God will strengthen you. Paragraphs 5 and 6 double down on delivering the message to Jehovah's Witnesses that they are powerless without Jehovah and that they're nothing special. For instance, David fought a bear and a lion, which you in the audience probably haven't done. Yet, David did not claim the victory for himself. Jehovah was behind it. Promote feelings of guilt or unworthiness, such as you are not living up to your potential, your thoughts, feelings, actions are irrelevant or selfish. This is also an emotional manipulation tactic that abusers use. This is being dismissive or diminishing. This is how an abuser would use this tactic. When their victim makes a valid contribution in group discussions or has a success, a manipulator can react with a dismissing or diminishing comment in order to maintain control. This can look like giving reasons for why the success was not earned, or why their victim's valid comment is unworthy of others' attention and consideration. David gets no credit, you get no credit. David wasn't foolish enough to think he did anything special, even after defeating Goliath. So don't inflate your self-worth, Jehovah's Witnesses. Paragraph 7 and 8. David was certain of God's backing. You can build your confidence by reading Bible accounts that remind you of how Jehovah saved his worshipers. Also, consider reports on our jw.org website that illustrate how Jehovah has supported our brothers and sisters in modern times. There's a lot here. This is not just behavior and information control. It's also one of Dr. Robert J. Lufton's 8 criteria for thought reform. This is called mystical manipulation. With mystical manipulation, the group manipulates experiences that appear spontaneous to demonstrate divine authority, spiritual advancement, or some exceptional talent or insight that sets the leader and the group apart from humanity, and that allows a reinterpretation of historical events, scripture, and other experiences, or in this case, Jehovah's support. Here is a brief clip of cult expert Rick Allen Ross explaining mystical manipulation.
Mystical manipulation. Things appear to happen spontaneously, but in fact they are really contrived, scripted, and not spontaneous.
Also, you'll see that the paragraph advertises jw.org as a way to build your faith and confidence. They absolutely do not want you to look outside of their Watchtower-approved research tools. The governing body has procured a very specific interpretation of the Bible, and they can't have you veering off script, or worse, thinking for yourself. Information control. Extensive use of cult-generated information and propaganda, including newsletters, magazines, journals, audio tapes, videotapes, YouTube, movies, and other media. Behavior control. Major time spent with group indoctrination and rituals, and or self-indoctrination, including the internet. Information control. Deception. Deliberately withhold information. Distort information to make it more acceptable. Systematically lie to the cult member. Paragraph 8 continues to put Jehovah's Witnesses down and says that it is only thanks to Jehovah's help that you are still in the truth. You can't even get that right. This is, again, behavior control instilling dependence and obedience. Paragraph 9 is back to the selective but also somehow impartial God who is not interventionist but can in fact make sure that you will never be tested beyond your limits. The paragraph says that he will never let you be tested beyond your limits. This is just very hard to hear if you're a Jehovah's Witness in the audience who is suffering mental illness, enduring, or a survivor of abuse, if you're a parent who prayed so hard to save your sick child, because if you're in the audience struggling, you're meant to believe that Jehovah decided you could handle that. And if you're not handling that, that's where the guilt and unworthiness creeps in. Subheading 2. The living God will reward you. Paragraph 10 says Jehovah is the rewarder of those who worship him. Behavior control. Rewards and punishments used to modify behaviors, both positive and negative. The question for paragraph 11 says, what moved Timothy to work hard in the congregation? And then the answer is the very first sentence. Timothy put his hope in the living God, which is the equivalent of saying, because he did. They give no explanation of how he did that or how you can follow his example, because these are the steps that he took to do that. This is a thought fallacy called hasty generalization. Hasty generalization is a conclusion based on insufficient or biased evidence. In other words, you are rushing to a conclusion before you have all the relevant facts. The rest of the paragraph simply is there to make Jehovah's Witnesses feel like the way their organization is run today, their congregational duties and obligations are all rooted in biblical history by implying that Timothy was just like us. Thought control. Instill new map of reality. Paragraph 12 dangles the carrot of salvation before Jehovah's Witness elders. It says, God will reward them for what they do, so they better do. It also says, elders who make themselves available for such work see the congregation as Jehovah's arrangement, not a man-made institution. Ironically, many men wake up from their indoctrination after becoming elders. They receive the Secret Elders Manual, Shepherding the Flock of God, a book that most Jehovah's Witnesses don't have access to, and a book a woman, a female Jehovah's Witness, will never be approved to have. That's information control. The men see this book, which is basically a rule book and instruction manual filled with standard operating procedures. Then they sit in on an elders meeting and see the office politics, and that's when some will double down and bury their heads because they've been told their entire life that this was meant to be their aspiration. But others become disenchanted seeing the corporateness of it all. Thought control. Require members to internalize the group's doctrine as truth, adopting the group's map of reality as reality. Instill black and white thinking, decide between good versus evil, organize people into us versus them, insiders versus outsiders. Thought control. Forbid critical questions about leader, doctrine, or policy aloud. I'm just surprised that they put it so plainly here. Paragraph 13. Not all can be elders. That's right. Some of you are born with the wrong genitalia for a leadership position. It continues by saying, God notices your pathetic female contributions, no matter how modest. Actually, it says that God appreciates it when we do our best. He notices our contributions, no matter how modest. He is pleased when we raise our hand to comment at meetings. He rejoices when we overlook an offense and extend forgiveness. Overlook an offense. This could be innocent. This could be as simple as extending grace to someone who maybe said something thoughtless to you. However, knowing the Watchtower's culture of silence, I can't help but think of the battered spouses and abused children in the audience hearing this internalizing this and thinking them not speaking up, them not demanding their own rights or justice, that's what makes Jehovah rejoice?
Cultivate modesty so you're an example to others. We show we're modest when we do not demand our own rights.
Subheading 3, remain close to the living God. Paragraph 14 says, for Jehovah to be real to us, we need to make time to pray to him and to study his word. Behavior control, major time spent with group indoctrination and rituals and or self-indoctrination including the internet. Thought control, teaching thought-stopping techniques which shut down reality testing by stopping negative thoughts and allowing only positive thoughts, including denial, rationalization, justification, wishful thinking, meditating, praying. When we have a close friendship with Jehovah, we will not want to do anything that displeases him. That doesn't sound like a healthy friendship. Paragraph 15 tells Jehovah's Witnesses not to doubt. It says, when the Israelites were stranded in the wilderness for 40 years, they began to doubt. Rightfully so, they were expecting a promised land, and instead they were eating manna off the ground. But the paragraph says that they rebelled against God. Surely we want to avoid following their disobedient course. Thought control, rejection of rational analysis, critical thinking, constructive criticism. Emotional control, teach emotion-stopping techniques to block feelings of doubt. Paragraphs 16 and 17 gaslight the readers. Just a reminder, since gaslighting is overused and misused many times, gaslighting is an emotional manipulation tactic and is loosely defined as manipulating someone into questioning their own perception of reality. It's about making you question yourself, including your memory, your trust in yourself, your sanity, what you're feeling, and even your own identity. Paragraph 16 and 17 do this by telling Jehovah's Witnesses they can't trust what they see or their own experience or what they hear from ex-members, because they're being told that it's not possible to live a happy, moral, satisfying life free of Watchtower's control. It says, often those who ignore what God requires seem to prosper. Correction. Often those who ignore what Watchtower requires seem to prosper. Speaking for myself, I am the happiest I've ever been in my life since leaving Watchtower. It says that people outside the organization may seem like they're having a great time, but you don't have to worry about that because Psalm 73:27 says they're all going to die anyway. Paragraph 18 reminds us again that they are in fact a doomsday cult by instilling some more fear. During these last days, we slave for a living and true God. Sadly, so many Jehovah's Witnesses believe they are slaving for God. Instead, they're being deceived out of their earnest devotion by these guys who are running a multi-billion-dollar organization. We will soon face the greatest tribulation to occur on earth. Emotional control, phobia indoctrination, inculcating irrational fears about leaving the group or questioning the leader's authority. No happiness or fulfillment possible outside of the group. Terrible consequences if you leave. Shunning of those who leave. Fear of being rejected by friends and family. Never a legitimate reason to leave. Those who leave are weak, undisciplined, unspiritual, worldly, brainwashed by family or counselor, or seduced by money, sex, or rock and roll. Well, that brings us to the end of this article. So let's tally up the score. We have 4 for behavior control, 3 for information control, 5 for thought control, and 4 for emotional control. That gives us a total score of 4,354, a number 28 times more than the estimated monthly allowance of a Bethelite. A Bethelite, a full-time, dedicated slave working on the compound at Watchtower headquarters, sometimes putting in 13-hour days, 28 times more monthly. Where are those billions going, Watchtower? Thank you so much for joining me here today. Please give the video a like because it helps the information get out to more people, and leave a comment because I enjoy hearing from you. Maybe let me know what you think Watchtower is doing with the money. Continue thinking freely, Black Sheep.